Barbers! What's going on, everybody? I go by the name of It's Marvy Marv, and you are now tuned in to another live episode of the Barbers podcast. And today, I got my homegirl with me, Jennifer,
Hey,
the hair CEO. How are you feeling, Jen?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited.
I'm super
Got
excited, man. I've
my
been
barber
waiting.
shirt on and everything.
I see that. Barbers. Guys, if you're tapped in live, uh, type in your best barbers in the chat. I need to see your best barbers if you're tapped in live. Shout out to Jennifer. She's got her barber shirt on. How she got hers on? I ain't even got mine on, guys. I got the I got the pendant, but the shirt is dope. When'd you get that shirt?
This was at a CT Barber Expo.
This past one, or was it
Yep, this
because I've
past
been there
one.
forever?
Yeah, this
Yes.
was my first time. So my first CT Barber Expo. Yep.
How was that experience?
Man, that was like super eye opening. I was so impressed. Jay puts on an amazing show. Amazing show. Of course, I wanted more education. It was a lot of technical stuff, which is great and amazing, but I think that's my only critique. But that show is like executed to like excellence. So yeah.
So do you when you say more education, you feel like more classes or different types of education?
Different types of education. Like I was expecting some stuff like with what we're going to talk about right now, taxes. But the stage was really for more technical education, which, like I say, is great. But I was expecting, more business education, and I think
Yeah.
that was missing. But I know he does the whole wealth and health summit, so I figured that's probably why they're separated. But of course, the turnout for the CT Barber Expo is on a different level from that health and wealth summit.
Yeah, for sure. And I get what Jay does and why he does it,
Mhm.
because as you know, is studying marketing and learning how to build your business and your brand. You want to give the people what they want. And unfortunately, a lot of times barbers don't really care about the stuff that you care about, right? That you were just speaking on, like some of this type of stuff. And, the stuff me and you have discussed when it comes to different things, when it comes to business, the business of barbering. A lot of times, unfortunately, barbers don't care. They just want to know how to do the best fade, what
Yep.
clippers should they buy, what new enhancement spray is out. And all of that stuff is great. It's great. But we are a business. You know what I
At the
mean?
end of the
We got to learn
day,
the business side of it.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, just like you, I get why he does it. That's what they want to see, the clippers and the new technique. So yeah, but that was my only critique. I don't know if I would go back for that reason because, of course, you know, I'm about the business. I can listen and sit in on business talks all day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you were to go back, I would say it would be from the angle of having your own space and
Mm,
just looking to the same way right now we're going to have this conversation with barbers and educate them. You do that from your own space and then just, onboard some barbers to work with to help get people right because, there are a lot of people that are going to be at the CT Barber Expo that feel like Alex feels. First year going legit, saving for my taxes at the end of the year. This episode is for me. This is for us.
woo.
So there are that small segment of barbers that will be tapped in today because these are the people that go above and beyond, and that small segment of barbers that will go to the event that need this type of stuff and want it. So if you do go back, that may be the approach rather than just going as a spectator. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. And I love Alex's comment. First year going legit. I love that. I love it. I love it. Love it. But I just want to say, because every time I see a comment, I'm just like, all right, let me talk about that for a second.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if you don't mind, I just want to say something with Alex. First of all, Alex, congratulations. I'm super proud of you for going legit. But I do want to say, because this is your first year going legit and you're saving for taxes, don't wait until the end of the year to make that tax payment, because if you do, you are going to owe penalties and some underpayment fees. So if you've already saved up some money, go ahead and make those payments right now, because as of today, it is the end of August and two tax payment periods have already passed. So the third one is coming up September 15th. So, just a little over 2 weeks from now. So that's when that third payment is due. So go ahead and make a payment.
So what I want to say, guys, is I hope you can tell just by that response that this is going to be, I would argue, the most informative live that you may have ever tapped into when it comes to what Marvy Marv does, right? Like, it's informative in a different way, right? Like a lot of the stuff I do, obviously, guys, we're always trying to give you all the gems. This one's going to be a little different because these are going to be some gems that really help you guys when it comes to business. So get ready to take notes. Guys, make sure you take a screenshot of this too. Share it to your story. Tag me in it. Tag at the HairCEO _ in it. So that way when we get off and we're done with the conversation, we can show you some love, for one. And for two, you can let people know that rock with you, that we're putting out some game here on this live conversation. So do that if you haven't done so already. And again, get ready to take notes. So Jen, before you get into the real gem dropping, for the people that don't know who you are, you want to give us just the short backstory of why the people tapping in should want to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jen. I'm at HairCEO _ and I am an enrolled agent, which is also called an EA. It is a federal license to do taxes at the federal level and both the state level. And I got started in the hair industry, in the business, straight out of college. I graduated with a degree in economics and accounting, but I've always felt a passion for hair. So I spent a year in Dominican Republic. I'm an honorary Dominican, not Dominican by blood, but honorary, and started a distribution company importing hair products. And then I opened up my own hair salon, made a ton of money. But then when I tried to buy my house, I got denied because my taxes weren't straight. And I was like, wait a minute, I have a degree in economics and accounting. Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm making all this money, but I didn't know the tax piece. So then I started studying taxes. And like I say, now I'm licensed, have my own tax and accounting firm. And I specifically only work with hair professionals. So that's barbers, braiders, and hairstylists. That's what I do.
I love it. So the first question I got for you is, why should barbers care about this? And when I say why should they care about this, we have a lot of people, and even I was a barber that thought this early on. It's like, why should I care about paying taxes? I mean, if I'm making money and at the end of the day, I got $200, $300, $400, $500 in my pocket, and I could spend it here, I could spend it there, and I could do all of these things. Why should I care about figuring this out and learning this stuff just so I can give this money away? That's how I thought early on. And I'm sure there's a lot of barbers that will watch this that feel the same way. Like maybe they're only making, let's say, 10, 15, 20K a year, or some of them, maybe they're making a nice chunk of money and they're like, you know what? I'm not trying to pay the man. I'm just going to flow under the table and buy everything cash. So exactly. Why should they change the way they look at that?
I think, and I thought that way too. So I'm not some crazy person that just loves paying taxes. Like, I hate paying taxes, but I love business more and I love buying assets more. So that's why you should really care, because it just gets to a point where you're just trying to, be an adult, right? Like, you want to buy some stuff, you want to get into real estate or just build wealth. And a lot of times the path to wealth is getting into real estate or, getting to buying other businesses. And you just can't skirt around being on paper if you're trying to do business. Like, for an example, even when I sold my hair salon, I couldn't sell my hair salon without showing the financials. I have to show that the business is actually making money. So a lot of times, people will say, well, my exit strategy is going to be, I'm going to sell my barbershop, I'm going to sell my hair salon. Well, what are you going to show them that confirms what you're making? So not only do you have to show money on paper to buy assets like a home or commercial property, but if you're trying to buy and sell businesses, then you have to show that the business is making money. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to trust someone to say, oh, but listen, I got it, in my bank account. Like, just take a look. I don't even trust me. I'm always booked out. Like, I don't know. I want to see an income statement. What are your expenses? What are your revenues on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? I mean, I'm not just going to take your word for it. It needs to be in black and white.
I love it. So I'm the barber too, that early on in my career had some dreams of owning my own home, which I'm now a homeowner, right? And obviously, the real estate is always something that's being presented to us as a way to build wealth, right?
Yeah.
Assets. It's a proven model of wealth building that has worked time and time again for people.
Yep.
And earlier on in my career, I always looked at it to try to figure out, okay, how can I pay the least amount in taxes? And for me, the understanding, especially early on, was report the little bit of money I can.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, all right, people say I need to leave a paper trail. I want to get a home. All right, let me report a little something. Right.
Yeah.
So I would report the little bit I had to, not understanding what I was doing. What ended up happening was I screwed myself, right? Because I was making enough money to be able to afford a mortgage. Hey, I'm paying X amount of dollars in rent every month for years. I mean, I can clearly afford a mortgage, but when I'm going to the bank trying to get that loan, it was a different conversation.
Completely
right?
different.
And so it ended up setting everything back a few years to the point where, sure, I could afford to get a home if I was given an opportunity, but I wasn't given an opportunity because, I wasn't reporting enough income. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that happens a lot. Like, I mean, I hear that same story over and over again. I mean, that is my story, essentially, when I tried to buy a house, because I was taught the same thing you were, show as little bit of money as possible and you pay the least amount in taxes. Like, that's what I was taught. And, even for my dad's an entrepreneur, and, that's the way he did things. But, him and my mom were married. So, you don't figure out this stuff until much later when you can understand things. But my mom, was the one who was a W-2 employee. So she was the one who had her name on everything. And, not knowing that growing up, you're just like, oh, yeah, we got a house, we got this, we got that, not knowing the inner workings behind it. So, I too tried to, show as little money as possible. But, just like you shooting yourself in the foot doing that, because what happens is, see, we don't understand what those numbers are really saying. It's not the fact that you are filing taxes. It's not the, just the process of filing it and submitting it and saying, okay, I submitted something. No, it's the numbers on that tax return that the lenders are looking at, because they're like, okay, if you're telling me that you have a successful barbershop and you are only profiting $10,000, because we don't have a problem showing that we grossed over 100,000. Like, anybody can gross over 100,000, but they're not looking at that number. They're not looking at what you grossed. They're looking at, okay, that's how much you grossed. Now, how much money did it take to run that business? And that's where people are trying to, fluff up the numbers and figure out all these tax deductions and figure out all these expenses. And then you're left with $10,000 at the end of the year. That's your profit. And that's how much you're going to be taxed on. What you don't realize is that what you're telling that lender is, I can afford to pay not even $10,000, because you're saying to that lender, I make $10,000 a year. That's not even $1,000 a month. That's what you're telling that lender. So a lender is looking at you and saying to themselves, well, you can't afford a house, so I'm not going to approve you for a house. You're not going to get qualified for a house because according to this tax return, you only make $10,000 in a year. But they don't know that those $90,000 in expenses aren't really expenses. That's you kind of fluffing it up. You know what I mean? So that's what people have to understand.
Yeah. I remember just talking to, a lender, and I was all excited.
Oh, wait a minute. What did Mark say? I'm sorry. What? He said, not the case. Y'all leaking game right now. What does that mean?
I think he was right. He was coming from a perspective of this right here. Y'all dropping gems for sure.
Oh,
yeah. I think he just typed it a little wrong. But yeah, I think it was coming from this perspective. I was thinking about, hearing you say that, thinking back to when I first went to the lender and, I had money saved up and I knew I was making X amount of dollars a week and I knew I was paying this in rent. And I remember, telling the lender, like, here's my books, showing them. And I'm like, I'm ready to get the home. And I remember him looking at those numbers and looking at me like, buddy, we're not going to be able to get you much. And I'm like, well, what do you mean much? And he's like, not going to be able to really get you anything. You're not really showing income. And I'm like, well, this is my gross income. What do you mean? And that's when I had the hard lesson of, I needed to increase that taxable income number. I got that realization right there because it was like, all right, my taxable income number was a lot lower, which we'll talk about. I'm sure you're going to be able to break it down in a simplistic way for these guys. But that's when Absolutely. I got my first introduction to that, and it was eye opening for sure. What I want to tap in on before I ask you, I got some other questions for you too, but there are people tuned in, like Julian right now says, where do you start making payments for September? So what would you say to somebody that's like hasn't ever made a payment before and is trying to make some payments now? What would you say to them?
Absolutely. I would say go to irs.gov/payments. That's exactly where you go, and you can log in and make a payment directly from the IRS's website. And one thing to know here is that that's just the federal payment. If you live in a state that also has state income taxes, you have to make an estimated payment to the state as well. So a lot of people think, making that one IRS payment is it, but you have the state payment as well. So there it is. Yep, that's that website right there. Yep.
Okay, cool. So they would have to go, set up an account?
They can set up an account, or you don't have to even set up an account. There's like a just pay now with direct pay, or you can sign in.
Okay. Cool.
Yep.
And VIP Face says, how often can I start paying taxes as a barber?
So good question. So states they vary. Some states only allow you to make payments on the estimated payment date, but the IRS is nice because they will take your money any day of the week. You just have to make sure you tell them what you're paying towards, because when you log in for the first time, it is a little confusing. I think I have a video on how to make these payments. So I think maybe, I don't know, or haven't released it yet. I know I've recorded it. I don't know if it's released yet on my YouTube channel, but once you log in, you will see there are a lot of different ways and a lot of different types of payments that the IRS accepts. So you just have to make sure that you select estimated tax payments, because like I say, there are a lot of different reasons why people make tax payments.
Perfect. Love that. Guys, if you feel like you're getting value out of this conversation, drop some gems in the chat. Drop some gems to let us know that you're getting value. Also, take a screenshot of this, share it to your story, tag me in it, tag the HairCEO in it. So that way, when we get off, we can show you some love. Also, ask as many questions as you can, because even if we don't answer them right away, I have the option on my end through this software to be able to star your question. So a little bit later when we do, some more direct Q&A, we'll be able to cover your question. So even if you feel like, all right, my question has nothing to do with what you're talking about right now, still feel free to ask it. Rosie said, girl, your channel is about to be my favorite.
Love it. Yes. Love it.
Yes. Hell yeah. So Jen, the question I got for you right now too, all right, is for the people that are real new, right? Yeah. And even some of like they said earlier, they want to start making payments now. What are the key steps for beginner barbers to take and set up their business legally and to make sure that they're like being compliant with all of the regulations when it comes to taxes? Where do they start? Like from the bottom up, what would you recommend?
Okay, so from the bottom up, number one, no matter when you get started, because let's say everyone doesn't get started in January, right? So some people think like you need a whole full year, barbering before you can start paying taxes. Now, one thing to note here is that a question I get a lot is, does everybody have to pay estimated taxes? And the question is, the answer is no. So you only have to pay estimated taxes if, and pay attention to this, if you owed more than $1,000 the prior year, or you expect to owe more than $1,000 the current year. So those are like your tests if you have to make estimated payments. So that's number one. But as a new barber, let's say the money is coming in and you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to owe more than $1,000 this year in taxes. What I like to do is just put away money. Like as the money comes in, just tuck it away before you even spend it, and don't even look at it. Like, just
how much would you recommend? Is there like a percentage that you should tuck away?
Yeah, what I like to do is before you even spend anything. So if you have $100 come in, say 15. So 15%. But gross is really important to understand that. I'm talking about gross because I don't want you to take 15% of the amount after you pay expenses, because self-employment tax alone is 15.3%. So that's not going to be enough. So that would be my recommendation, 15% of the gross. Some people even go up as far as 20 and 25%. But for me, I want you to keep most of your money. So, 15%. And if we have to pay a little more at the end of the year, I'm fine. But I want you to keep the majority of your money.
Love it. Another question. So Jeremy says, do you need a DBA, LLC, or S Corp to pay taxes? What is the best option? So what would you say is the best option for a beginner, right? Because obviously this is a more in-depth conversation, and it's right. This thing could be hours and hours and hours and hours of conversation to fit everybody's specific needs. What would you say to somebody, the beginner barber? What's the best option for them?
So I would say beginner barber, the IRS does not care if you have a DA, a LLC, a S Corp. They do not care. If you are cutting hair and making money, you have to pay taxes. That's what I say. So it's not about what do you need. Literally, if I, Jennifer, who cannot cut hair, if I picked up some clippers right now and tried to cut somebody's hair and I made money by doing that, the IRS is going to want their cut. So you don't need anything. That's what I want everyone to leave here knowing. You don't need to set yourself up legally. You don't need to do anything. You just have to let the IRS know that you made money and give them their cut. So you don't need anything. So I would just say for that beginner barber, again, getting that account set up, even if you don't have a business bank account yet, even if you're just using your personal bank account, which I don't recommend, but let's meet people where they are. If you are using a personal bank account, just make sure you put some money aside, because you still have to pay taxes. You don't have to be set up legally. There is nothing you have to do beforehand. So I just want people to understand that.
Okay. So I want to piggyback a little bit, or dive a little bit deeper into what you just said, how you wouldn't recommend using a personal account. So what would be the alternative for them to do? Let's say they hear you say that and they're like, all right, I want to pay taxes. She's saying that she wouldn't recommend a personal account. So what's another account I could set up, and how fast could I do that?
Yeah. So what I would say is, if you're currently using a personal account, meaning your personal funds are also in that account, then I don't want you to do that. So what I'm saying is I want something completely separate. So even if that means you open a different personal account, but it's just for business. But ideally, I would like for you to have a business bank account. A lot of banks, if you want a business bank account, you will need an LLC. So that's something that you would need to get at the state level for a business bank account. But what I'm saying is that even if you don't have an LLC, get a separate personal bank account that you only use for business purposes.
I love it. So that's the fastest way, I would assume, right, to do that, guys, is to get just set up a separate personal account and use that strictly for business, and then inquire with your state to see or with the bank to see what you would need from the bank in order to set up a business account. In my state, what I needed was a DBA in New York. So I needed to pay, I think it was like $27. And then I went to the bank with a DBA, I set up the business account. Then they gave me my business debit card and it said, you know, the Palace Barber Shop. And I'm like, oh, like I'm official. I'm legit. Let's go. So, you know,
Yes.
that felt really good, you know, getting the cards to say it, Marv and all of that. Like Mark said, you can get a business account with a DBA. That's exactly
Perfect.
what I did to
Perfect.
first start out. But even aside from that, the fastest route, if you want to do it right away, like Jen said, is to set up the personal account, and then just
Yeah.
run your business transactions through that.
And that's so important because even like right now I'm working, well, it's a potential client, but reached out to me. He's a barber and he's about to lease his own barbershop. But what's happening is the landlord is asking for his bank statements and he doesn't have a separate, you know, account. And so now all of his personal expenses are mixed in with the business. You just don't want people in your personal business that much. So, I mean, that's like a side reason, but the main reason is that you just want clean records. So you don't want to mix your personal with your business. But that's another reason, a more realistic reason why you just don't want people to know what you buy. I mean, your landlord shouldn't know that you go to McDonald's every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know, like they just shouldn't be in your business that much.
Yeah. Facts. You ain't lying. You don't need to be worrying about me drinking my red vanilla iced coffee. You know, you don't worry about what I'm doing. Guys, what I would say, let me pull this up on the screen real quick. When you hop off of this live, if more with Jen, the HairCEO, what I want you to say, DM her and say, let's work. All right. And what's going to happen is she will send you this that you see on the screen right there. Where did it go? Oh, right here. Boom.
I can see it. Yep.
Yep. You can see it. And she'll send you this, and then you can fill this out to the best of your ability. And then you guys could start working together, and she could really speak to your specific situation. Because the one thing about taxes is it is a conversation that really does depend on the individual person. So at some point, DM the HairCEO on Instagram and say, let's work. Even if you did it real quick right now, just go DM let's work and then come back to the conversation. So that way, when we get off this, she can hit you up. But you're going to have questions that can only be answered for your specific situation. You know what I mean? Even after listening to this, getting a whole lot of game from Jen, you're still going to have questions because your situation is different. So make sure you do that. DM her and say, let's work, so then she can speak to you directly. Jen, the one thing I want you to go in on real quick, because I know this is something that you probably hear all the time. And it's probably one of those things where it's just like, man, I have to just keep explaining this. People really make the LLC thing so important, right? Is it LLC needed for a shop owner? What's the negatives to LLC? And whenever we're talking about taxes, LLC is just one of the first things that is always brought up.
Yeah.
So, and I've been there, right? Like when I'm first getting introduced to this world too, that's literally, they're like almost synonymous, right? It's like, all right, you got to start doing your taxes. So what do I got to do? Get an LLC. It's just one of the first things, right? So can you explain some of the misconceptions about what an LLC actually is and some of the myths of it, so that the people tapped in could have a better understanding of what it actually is?
Absolutely. So I would say the biggest misconception about an LLC is that you need an LLC before you are in business. And that's just not true. You are in business the moment someone pays you for a service. That's it. Like, and it's meant to be for profit. Like that is the definition of business for profit. Like you are providing a service and someone pays you money. An LLC is protection. It is protecting you. It's separating you from your business. Separating your business from your personal assets, so that in the event that someone is trying to sue you, they cannot come after your personal assets because it's protected inside of that LLC entity, that business entity. So I would say that is the biggest misconception, is that LLC is synonymous with business, and it really shouldn't be. Like, business is about how are you making money? Is someone paying you for something that you offer in a product or a service? The LLC is protecting you. The LLC is separating your business from your personal assets. That's what I want people to understand. It has nothing to do with taxes. And I know when I say that, some people, they're like, oh, but I'm taxed as an S Corp. I'm just like, well, yeah, but that still has, I don't want to say it has nothing to do with your LLC, but I was trying to think of an analogy yesterday, because people always say that. They're just like, yeah, but the S Corp. Yes, the S Corp is a tax election. And what that means is that is you going to the IRS and asking them to be taxed as an S Corp. And one of the requirements for being taxed as an S Corp is that you be incorporated or have an LLC. And so what incorporated means is that you are a corporation. So when you go to your state and you register your business entity, you can register as an LLC, or you can register as a C corporation, which is just a regular corporation. You'll notice when you go to your state to register your business, you will never see S Corp there, because it is not a business entity. It is a tax election. It is you asking permission to be taxed in a different way. And one of the requirements is that you have a incorporation, like you be a corporation or an LLC. But that still does not mean that a LLC saves you money in taxes. I just want to be very clear on that.
Gotcha. So just so you guys know, the LLC saves you $0 in taxes. It is cool to be able to say, it's Marv LLC, and it does offer protection, and it can be a very useful tool, guys, but it's not a tool that you use to save taxes. And Mark is feeling what you're saying. He said, correct. So, Jen, what would be your advice to the barbers who are tapped in that really want to start tracking their income and tracking their expenses? Yes. What's the easiest way for them to start doing that? And how would you recommend they do it?
Okay, so what I would say the quickest way is to, pen and paper. It's manual, but literally every day, just write down how much money came in and how much money went out for your business. I would say that's the quickest way you could start that right now. Just take a note of that. Then if you want to get a little bit more sophisticated, you could go to spreadsheets. If you're comfortable working on the computer, then go take it to a spreadsheet and just record all the money that's coming in and what's going out. Now, if you are, booked and really busy, then I would say it's time for you to start working with an accountant or a bookkeeper so that someone can handle that for you. So those I would say are the three options. But for getting set up quickly, just, pen and paper, just writing it all down, like what came in and what went out, old school.
Okay, cool. So let's say I'm a barber. I'm in the shop for the day. I made $200, right? So that would be the income that I write down, $200 in.
Yep.
As far as expenses, what are some of the things that I can write off as an expense? Maybe that day when I made the $200, I went to the store, I got a Red Bull, or, I was feeling lucky, I bought a scratch off. And then I was a little hungry, so I got a Snickers bar, right? So what are some of the things that I could write down as expenses?
Okay, I love this question because there are literally hundreds of tax deductions. And so much so that I put together a tax deductions toolkit, Marv, just because there are so many that I could not even talk about them all. But what the fast answer to that is, I tell people tax deductions fall into three different categories. Does it save you money? Does it advance your business? Or does it make you money? If you can answer any of those three questions, then it's probably tax deductible. So let's go back to your example. You're at the shop and you go and get a scratch off ticket. Okay, how is that making you money for your business? How is that advancing your business? Or how is that saving you any money? It's not. So that would not be tax deductible. Same thing for the Red Bull, right? You're going in there and you're just like, I need a Red Bull. Same three questions. You can't say that that's answering one of those three questions, so it's not going to be tax deductible. The IRS is not going to give you a tax deduction for an energy drink or a meal, because you already have to drink and eat meals. So you can't use that as a tax deduction. Now, if you are in a business meeting and you purchase, lunch or, Red Bull for someone and it's a business meeting, then yes, then that becomes tax deductible. But if you are working from your state, from your home state, and you're just getting lunch on your lunch break, that's not going to be tax deductible.
Okay. So Mark says, write it off, just give out a business card as you're in the process. Is that a way that the IRS is like, okay, cool?
No, I mean, you can try that. I would not do your taxes. Just write it off, give a business card. So give a business card. Are you saying give a business card as you are buying a Red Bull?
That's what he put, but if I get a Red Bull and advertise my business while I'm in that store, it could be a tax deduction.
No.
So you feel like that by playing the game that way, it's risky, is basically what you're saying.
Absolutely. It's definitely risky. I mean, okay. I would not want to risk an IRS audit off of a Red Bull. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Why would you want to risk that? You want to risk the IRS going into all of your records because you're telling the IRS agent, well, I gave them a business card while I was buying the Red Bull. Nah, that's not that's not worth the risk of an audit for me. I'm sorry.
Got you. So ultimately, be careful, guys. So, and to make the whole process easier and understandable, Mark says, I see, I got you. Mark's like, because it's like, okay, with this game, it is very, there's the gray area, right, guys? Like, there are ways where we can get even more write-offs, right? But at the same time, it's almost risk versus reward. We got to like play out, you know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah.
All right, is it really worth it? And again, this is some of the stuff that I'm still learning too, guys, because I feel you. I'm always trying to think too, like what are ways, that we could do some of the stuff. That's, part of the reason, not even part of the reason, but I'm fortunate enough to be a content creator, because being a content creator, can create more opportunities for us to be able to write more things off within our business, so, but we want to play it smart. The safe route would be, you sent me the ultimate tax deduction toolkit, right?
I did, yeah.
So you want to explain a little bit about what this is and how they can get their hands on it?
Yeah, so this is something I put together because, this is a question that I get all the time. What can I write off? And a lot of barbers that I work with, they come to me at the end of the year. And at the end of the year, it's too late to start figuring out, okay, how can we strategize to pay the least amount in taxes? Listen, I don't want you paying any more in taxes than you have to, but it's something that you have to strategize during the year, like even right now. So I put this together. It comes with videos on, how to avoid IRS audits, the 5 deadly sins, talking about how to avoid audits, a tax deductions worksheet. It comes with a spreadsheet as well, just for, what we were talking about, how to track the income, what's coming in and what's going out. And it'll automatically categorize them into where they need to go on your tax return based on some questions that you answer. So it really is a toolkit for you to figure out, okay, I'm going to do this myself. And I would say this is more so for the person who's not at a point where they're ready to start working with a bookkeeper. So this is more of a DIY if you're going to do it yourself. Our bookkeeping clients, they don't need this because, we're doing this for them. We're tracking everything for them. We have spreadsheets. We work with QuickBooks. But again, if you're not at that level where you're just like, I'm not ready for, a bookkeeper. I'm not ready for a system like QuickBooks because it's going to take a lot, like a learning curve. Learning QuickBooks is a lot. So this is something where you could get a list of 400 plus tax deductions. I go into, more detail with videos and again, just spreadsheets and things of that nature. So that's on my website, thehairceo.com/store. And it's available right here. I'm going to be doing a sale. You can just type in Barbers In the coupon code, it'll be 50% off today and tomorrow. So
wait. Hold up. So you about to hook us up with a promo?
I am promo.
Yo, that's dope. Barbers. Jen, I appreciate you. That's dope.
Absolutely. I didn't even get a chance to like activate it. So just make sure. Let me activate it while we're on this call right now. So people can go ahead.
Okay, so cool, guys. We're gonna be on this for a little bit longer. Jen, actually, that's a good question for me to ask you. What time did you block off until? Like, what time do you have till?
I have until 2 on my end. So I know sometimes you go 2 hours. So I was like, let me block out 2 hours just in case.
Okay. Yeah. Usually I like to, I try to keep it at like an hour and a half, but usually it can run to 2. So we'll kick it we've been live for 40 minutes. So we'll keep rocking for a little bit longer.
All right.
All right, cool. So guys, I put the link, the tax deductions, toolkit.com. I put it on the screen for you guys. So you can take a screenshot of this. And I put it in the comments. I don't know if you can click it in the comments. I'm not sure if you can. If you can, cool. If you can't, maybe copy and paste it. But that's where you can go to get the tax deduction toolkit. Cool kit. It is a cool toolkit. Right?
It is a cool kit.
And the what did you say the promo code is going to be for these guys?
It's going to be Barbers.
Okay.
One R.
With 1 R?
Yeah, like I know you have multiple R's. What is it? How many R's you got? We should just do your. How many R's you got? You got 3 R's.
3 of them.
All right,
just keep it simple. We'll do the 1. We'll do 1.
All right, we'll do the 1.
So it'd be that's something I kind of wish I might have did a little different. It's like, why'd I put all those R's? It just complicated everything. But want it to be all unique. Use Barbers as the code. Barbers will be the code.
I'm adding that coupon code right now because I just said that. I was like, you know what? Let me give something special for the people that are online right now because it's only going to be 50% off today and tomorrow. So you got to get it quickly.
That's dope. Appreciate you guys. What do you think about that? Let us know in the chat. Drop some fire emojis because I think that's super dope. And what I want you guys to understand too is like, number one, if we're talking about tax deductions and write-offs and all of that, I think Jen will agree this is a write-off by them getting this,
absolutely.
Right?
100%.
And can you explain to them why this is a write-off?
This is a write-off. Yeah, this is a write-off because like I said, something that is either saving you money, advancing your business, or making you money. So this is actually saving you money in your business, but it's also advancing you in your business. So it falls in 2 out of the 3 categories. So that's why it's going to be tax deductible. So this is helping you in your business. And so, yes, it's 100% tax deductible. Keep the receipt, send it to your bookkeeper, send it to your tax accountant, or just keep it in your own records. If you do your own taxes, 100% tax deductible.
Okay, awesome. So is it fair to say that anytime these guys invest into, something like this, a toolkit, a course, an online class, an in-person class, if it is something that is educating them when it comes to their business and their trade, it's a write-off?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Because like, for instance, I know I was telling you, I took your course, your social media course. I made sure I saved that receipt because I used it as a tax deduction last year. So anything that is helping me and my business is going to be a tax write-off. So I'm just really strategic with whatever I purchase. And your course, my course, my bookkeeping services, some people book clarity calls with me. And that's one of the things I tell them, make sure you write this stuff off. Like, this is a tax deduction. So, just write everything off that you can. I do not want you to pay more in taxes than you have to.
Okay. So with you saying that, there's another way to look at it too that I would like for you to cover, because is it fair to say that you could actually write off too much?
Oh,
because you want to be able to show income, right? And you want to be able to report income. And I think one of the mistakes that I made earlier on, and even I think some people who are still new to this and are listening today might even fall into that same trap that we fell into, where it's like we're trying to write off as much as possible to pay as little in taxes as possible. So would you say that you could potentially write too much off? And how would you know, how to avoid writing too much off?
Yeah,
What
that's
are some of your thoughts when you hear me say that?
Yeah, that's a great question because you're absolutely right. You can write too much off, but I think also it depends on where you are in life. And that's why having an accountant or tax professional that you are working with throughout the year is really important because, these are going to be some of the questions that you ask. Like you're a really good tax professional is going to ask you, well, what are you trying to do in the next 2-3 years? Are you trying to buy a home? Because if that's the case, then the strategy for you is going to be, okay, we want to show really high income and as little expenses as possible for the next 2 years, because we want to show that you're making a lot of money. And then maybe after you get your home and you're just like, you know what, I want to save as much money as possible. I already have a house. I'm not trying to buy any commercial property right now. I'm trying to pay the least amount in taxes. Well, it's like, okay, well, we're going to maximize some things. Maybe we're going to make some big purchases this year. Maybe you're going to remodel the shop or something like that. Like maybe if you're about to buy a home, maybe you don't remodel the shop in this year. Maybe you wait until after you buy a home. Like all of these strategies come into place. And then also maybe when you buy this equipment for the shop, some people like to take 100% of the depreciation up front for things that they purchase. Well, maybe instead of taking 100% of that expense, maybe you deduct it over, a number of years, which would be called depreciation. So you can depreciate it at a slower rate so that you could show more income. So there are a lot of different options, but it comes down to what you're trying to do. And maybe it's not always a good thing to write off so much every year. And then you have some people that just, they will, take a L on some of the things that they've purchased because they're trying to buy a house. I'll say, okay, well, these are all tax deductions where you're just like, well, you know what, Jennifer, we're not even going to use those tax deductions. I know I spent that money. I know it's tax deductible, but I don't want to use it this year because I'm trying to show as much income as possible. So all strategies.
I love it. And this is the type of stuff that when people work with you, these are the type of conversations you have and help things you help with.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so important. Like it's not, you even touched on it earlier, everyone's situation is unique. Down to where you live, there's some states that don't even have income taxes. So maybe our strategy would be a little different for you. But it really is a very personal relationship when you have with someone that you're talking about your money about,
I love it. So guys, if you're enjoying the conversation, if you're feeling like you're learning a lot, if you feel like you vibe with Jen and you feel like this is super informative, or even if you're listening to this and it still sounds kind of foreign to you, but you're understanding more than you did, DM the HairCEO on Instagram, _ on Instagram, right? The underscore is there.
Mm-hmm.
And just tell her, say, let's work. And what she'll do, I'll bring it up one more time for you guys, is she'll send you this form right here and you guys will fill it out. And then you guys will figure it out and you'll start working together and you can get all of this stuff straightened out. So DM her, say, let's work so we can make sure that you guys are doing things in the right way. So Hector says it said the code was invalid.
Yeah, I just updated. I had to update it while we were talking. So try now. Let me know if that's working, Hector. I literally just seconds ago. It should be working now.
Got you. So yeah, guys, try the code BARRRBERS. It should work. If for some reason it's not, she's going to take care of you. So
yeah,
that's why it's important to make sure you follow the HairCEO on Instagram. Subscribe to her channel as well on YouTube too. Make sure you do that. Let me bring that up real quick one more time just so they can see some of the videos and stuff you have there where she goes more in depth on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
she got a lot of videos, and I know this YouTube is a big part of your strategy moving forward. So I know there's going to be a lot more videos coming, correct?
Every week. Yep. So that is definitely, like you said, that's the strategy now, because, there's only so much that I can really get into on IG. I mean, I'm not leaving IG. I love IG and it's great for short form content, but with the stuff that I'm talking about, it has to be explained in a longer format. So I think, YouTube is the way to go.
Gotcha. So Mark says, taking my employees out to lunch, is that a tax deduction?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Make sure you keep those receipts.
So not even just necessarily taking them out. If you buy them lunch in the shop, is it tax deduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Rosie wants to know, should I buy a home or a shop property first?
Oh, that's a loaded question because a lot of follow-up questions. It really depends on you. I mean, Are you in a hurry to buy a home for personal reasons? You know, do you have a family? Do you have children? Do you have a husband? I mean, it's a lot of questions to that. You know, what are your goals? With the shop property, then purchase the home. So I think it would vary for each person. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of personal preference and what makes the most sense for you and where you are in life.
Perfect. And the code's working now, guys.
Yay! Awesome. Good.
Campbell said, yo, I just bought it. Forgot to put the code. Is there a way to refund it? I know. Maybe what if Camo? I don't know. Whatever Jen's
hit me up in the DM. Hit me up in the DM.
Yeah, hit her up in the DM. Maybe she could throw something in there for you.
Yeah, that's what I'm just thinking. Maybe we jump on a clarity call. I got you.
Yeah, and that'd be
yeah.
That'd be way more valuable.
One-on-one convo, 30 minutes. Me and you, Camo.
Got you.
Someone asked this question. They said, can Square be linked to QuickBooks? So love this question. Yes, a Square can be linked to QuickBooks. However, Square being linked to QuickBooks, if you're doing it yourself, it will probably drive you crazy. I'm telling you this right now because I've had so many clients that have Square and they've linked it to QuickBooks and they come to me crying. And so I would not recommend linking Square to QuickBooks if you're doing your books on your own. What I would suggest is a better route would be to link your bank account to QuickBooks. Now, I know Square has their own checking accounts, which I'm doing a whole video on that because I cannot stand those Square bank accounts. If you have one, that's all I can say. But it really complicates things. So the better option would be to connect your bank account to QuickBooks. And then, of course, all of your Square deposits will go into your bank account. So that's the way that you would be able to capture and categorize everything. Because if you have Square linked and your bank account linked, then you're just going to have double entries. It's going to be super confusing. I'm telling you, you'll pull your hair out. It's crazy.
Do we report tips?
Oh, great question. Yes, you do report tips. Now, one thing to note here, because I'll have some people come to me who are employees. If they have employees, let's say you have a barbershop and you have people working under you. Now, I'm not talking about booth renters because booth renters are not employees. But if you have employees, then they're getting paid on payroll. And then you have to report tips differently than someone who is self-employed. So you as a person, I'm just assuming, Eddie, if you are self-employed and you're working for yourself, then your tips are just included in that gross amount that you put into your spreadsheets every month. So you don't have to put it in a different category for the IRS. Now, maybe for you, you want to categorize it separately so that you can track how much money you're making in tips each and every month. But for the IRS purposes, for the tax purposes, it's just going to be lumped together in that gross income amount.
Cool. I appreciate you, Jen. I just want you to know that you're helping many people live, right, guys? Let us know in the chat if you're enjoying this. And then the people that are going to watch this back are going to be so thankful. And I appreciate you for taking time out your day to do this because it's helping a lot of people.
Yeah, I love this though.
Earlier, my homie Steph said, even as a student barber, and I think he was speaking to basically should we be doing taxes even if we're student barbers in barber school and still that early in our career.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If you are a student barber and you're making money from barbering, I mean, why not start early, But here's the thing. You may not owe taxes. So one thing to understand is that every year, the IRS and the government, Congress, comes out with the tax brackets. So, for example, in 2023, don't quote me, but I believe it's $13,950. That is the minimum that someone must make in order to file taxes if they work a W-2 job. Now, you have to report income as self-employed once you make over $400, but you still may not have to pay income tax. So, you can still report how much money you're making, but as a student barber, maybe you're not making that much money. So I don't want you to be afraid to report the money because you may not owe as much as you're thinking. Like, I think people have this misconception about, oh, I'm just going to owe so much money. You really hit that. It really becomes a problem when you're not saving throughout the year. So that's really how you stay ahead of it, is just by saving. And then you won't have any surprises. That reminds me, I had this barber. He follows me on YouTube, and I didn't even realize, like, I don't work with him monthly, Marv. It was the craziest thing. He just, reached out to me. I did his 2022 taxes, and he made great money. Like, he was grossing multiple six figures, and he did not have a lot of expenses. And so I'm nervous because I have to tell him, like, dude, you owe a lot of money. I'm so nervous, right? And I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna break this down. So I was like, and I kept asking, I was like, hey, are there any other purchases that you've made? Because he didn't do a lot of bookkeeping. And I had to, like, kind of coach him through what are some tax deductions. And it was like, I felt like we were missing a ton of deduction just because we were playing the memory game. And so I was like, listen, I hate to break this down to you, but you made a lot of money. You're going to owe about $18,000. And he was like, oh man. He was like, all right, well, I mean, how do I pay it? Can you just walk me through? And I was like, you ready to pay it, like, right now? He was like, yeah, I mean, I might as well. So I was like, do you need a payment plan? He was like, nah, like, I mean, I watch your YouTube videos. I've been saving all my money. I was like, oh, you've been saving for this? He was like, yeah, I mean, I'm listening to you. I was like, oh, well, let's go right now. He dropped $18,000 on the IRS website. We logged in. I was like, okay, and I think he owed state like $5,000. He was like, yeah, I got that saved up. He was like, Jen, I'm listening. I'm like, all right. So that's a barber. He was straight out of Atlanta. It was awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it hurts. It hurts making some of them, because to get my house, I had to figure out what I had to figure out. And I remember we was moving through the process all smooth. And then I got that email the one day. It was like, yeah, you got to make sure you take care of this. And it was a big number. And I was sick to my stomach. Oh my God, I was sick to my stomach. But, luckily I had been doing a lot better with my money to the point where I was able to do it, and we were still able to put this, home over my head. But I tell you what, guys, it never feels good giving your money to these people. All right. It doesn't feel good. And some of you guys might get real discouraged at this whole process, right? And you might think to yourself, well, it just sucks because being self-employed and being a barber, I feel like at the end of the year, I'm always having to pay this money. Whereas, people I know that got regular jobs, they're getting these big tax refunds, and it's not fair. I wish I was getting a tax refund like they are. So with that thinking, Jen, can you explain what a tax refund actually is?
Yeah.
So that for the people that don't understand it, can understand what it is. Because I remember, like, when I first got introduced to even what it is, I was like, oh, okay. So now I don't feel as bad. And then I'll actually share a story that I had with one of my clients. But can you explain what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually, I'm going to tell it in a story form because, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, straight out of college. But when I got denied for my house because I own my hair salon, my mom, who's never been an entrepreneur, she was like, well, you didn't get a house because you don't have a W-2 job. Now I know today that that's not true. But, she said to me, she was like, you didn't get the house because you don't have a W-2 job. And so what I did was I went out and got a W-2 job for the first time in my life because I got denied for a house. And I remember getting my very first paycheck. And I was just like, what is this? Like, because the amount I got, and I out the gate, I think I got a job making $75,000 a year. And I got my first paycheck and I was just like, I pay my hairstylist more than this. Like, what? Like, I'm making more money than this. How did I get denied for a house? But what I realized was that was the net amount. So when you're working for an employer, they're taking out that money before you can see it. It hurts us as business owners because we see the gross amount. And then we still have to pay Uncle Sam his percentage quarterly. But when you don't see it, you complain a lot less. So people with W-2 jobs, they don't have that hurt because they had it and then they had to give it away. They're not even getting it, right? And so because we don't have someone making those payments for us, that's what that estimated payment is. And when people are getting refunds, all that means is that the employer gave the government too much of the money. That's all that means. So if you as a self-employed person want a refund, all you have to do is give the government too much money in estimated taxes during the year. That's all you have to do. You want a refund? That's the best way to get the refund. But again, I don't want you to get a refund. The goal should never be to get a refund, because all that means is that you've given the IRS an interest-free loan for a whole year. Like, why would you want to give the government more money? Like, I'd much rather have that money and invest it myself, So that's all a refund is. A refund is, well, two things. A refund is, number one, you don't make a lot of money and maybe you qualify for earned income tax credit, the low income tax credit, or you have a whole bunch of kids and maybe you have refundable tax credits, which is great. A lot of people get refunds for that. Or you are in some big business where you're doing research and development and getting credits, tax credits that Congress are paying you for. Maybe you're developing, clean energy and all this other stuff, and maybe you're getting credits for that. So these are some of the reasons why people are getting refunds. But I would say the overwhelming majority of people getting refunds are because they overpaid to the government.
Yes. And I remember that, again, like to share a story, a similar story. I remember I was cutting this cop that I used to cut years ago, and it was a year where I ended up owing like $10,000 in taxes that year. So, it's disgusting to think about, but it is what it is, right? It's the game we're playing. So I owed like 10,000. And I remember the cop in my chair was like, man, that's crazy. That sucks. He was telling me how he got like 12,000 back that year. He's like, so, at the end of the year, you paid 10,000. I got 12,000 back. And I'm like, I hear you. And I see what you're saying. And I could see why you feel like you got 12,000 back. So that's great. And I had to pay that 10,000. That sucks. But let me ask you, do you know how much you paid in taxes? Right. And he didn't know the answer to that question right then and there. But I ended up seeing him a couple weeks later when he came back for a haircut. We were talking about it again. And he was like, yo, I actually looked at, my stuff or whatever. And he said, through the year to date, I ended up paying 35,000 in taxes. Right. So he got 12,000 back, but he paid 35,000. So when you do the math, he ultimately paid $23,000 in taxes. That's where right. I paid $10,000 in taxes. So I paid $13,000 less than him, but it didn't look like that because at the end of the year, I paid it out,
and he got it back.
And he got it back, and I'm in New York. Mark says California taxes is the worst. I'm in New York. You know what I mean? So you already know how it is over here too. They try to take as much as they can.
Yeah, them California taxes are just disrespectful.
Yeah. What states are the worst?
Oh my gosh. Well, California is one of them. New York is one. What's another real bad one? I would say I don't know. I would have to look, but I have a list of like worse state taxes. But California and New York, y'all are up there for sure.
What are off the top of your head some of the best?
You got Georgia isn't that bad. I want to say North Carolina isn't that bad. Of course, you have states that don't have any income taxes like Tennessee, Florida, Texas. There are like eight or nine of them. Wyoming, Alaska. So there are a few that don't have any taxes, any state taxes. Now, of course, they may have higher, taxes in other areas, but as far as income taxes, they don't have them. So it's nice.
Let me see some of these other questions I had. So Mike asked earlier, said, are clothes and shoes a tax deduction within reason? I've always been told uniforms are a tax deduction.
Yeah, so you'll see this. The loophole with this one is to put your logo on a lot of your clothes, and then it's tax deductible. So yeah, I like that option. Definitely.
So this hat I'm wearing for my
Yep.
business, bigger than barbering, tax deductible.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So would you agree that as people building businesses and entrepreneurs or whatever we call ourselves, that it can be a more tax advantage for us if rather than buying a bunch of Nike t-shirts or Adidas t-shirts and Nike hats, that we bought plain stuff and put our logo on it and wore that instead? Is that
100%.
a smarter route?
100%. 100%. So much smarter. I mean, if you think about it, and I know, barbers have it's a stereotype, because I won't generalize and say it's everyone, because it definitely is not. But you do have a lot of barbers who are very materialistic, and are all about the name brands. But it's a better play if you just buy some plain stuff and put your logo on it, or your brand on it. I mean, then it becomes tax deductible. And I always look at the richest people. The richest people are never flashy. Like, they are never flashy. I always think about Steve Jobs, how he wore the same type of outfit every day, the blue jeans and the black turtleneck. And it's just like, when you're about your money and about your business, like, you're not trying to look flashy. You're not trying to support other people's brands. You're trying to, support your own brand, build your own brand. So absolutely.
Right. And I was breaking that down in a live one time, and it was very eye-opening for people. And there was a time where it was eye-opening for me too, where how, what you're really doing when you're wearing these other brands that we wear to try to whatever look cool or to display status and stuff like that. All we're really doing when we do that is turning ourselves into a walking advertisement for them.
That's it.
Like if I'm wearing a Supreme shirt, it's like, oh, I just spent $8 gazillion for this Supreme shirt, and I'm walking around now. I'm literally advertising Supreme.
Yep.
So I'm paying them to advertise them.
Yes.
That's really what we're doing when we're paying for these name brands. And I don't think we think like that,
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. So it's like, we're much better off, especially if we're building our own businesses and our own brands, to be walking around with our stuff. Why not be a walking billboard for our own stuff? Right. Because number one, we're advertising ourselves. Right. And then number two, there's so many tax advantages. I remember I heard, I was watching this video from Grant Cardone, and he was just showing in like his wherever he was at, he had like Grant Cardone 10X pens, 10X hats. Everybody had 10X shirts and all of that. And he was explaining in the video how, all of this is tax deductible because it's all, advertising and marketing and all the other categories that they can fall into.
And here's another thing, and supporting smaller brands. You know what I mean? Like, my thing is, I will never forget, I had a hairstylist talking to me, and she was like, Jennifer, I love your content. It's so amazing. She was like, my only recommendation to you would be, you should wear some more name brand stuff. I was like, what? She was like, you should really, have some Fendi and some Gucci. And I was like, for what? And she was like, well, you got to show that you are actually living this lifestyle. And I was just like, nah, I'm good. I was like, the reason why I wear stuff like this, like, you'll see, I wear a lot of t-shirts that come from barbers or come from hairstylists. Like, I support those brands because I want to support the people who I work with. I want to support the brands that could potentially be clients of mine. And why would I want to build up Fendi and Gucci? They have a ton of advertising already. Why would I want to advertise them further? No, I'm going to support and work with the people that I work with. So like, give me a Barbers t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take a Barbers t-shirt over a Fendi t-shirt any day.
Yeah, I love it. It looks good on you too. Looks better than that Fendi t-shirt. It's funny. My man Steph, he's tapped in right now. He just messaged me yesterday. He was wearing that same shirt. I think he went to BarberCon or something in Dallas. I think that's going on today. And he said, going through security, he said there was like 3 people who made a comment about the shirt. So it created interactions. And this Steph right here, he says, support the people who support you.
That's right.
He said, which led to, him being able to, let them know he's a barber. And that's what I always tell the people that buy stuff from me, or whenever I'm letting them know, hey, buy my shirts, is because, they turn you into a walking billboard. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we can argue wearing Barbers is wearing my brand, sure, right? A lot of the other stuff don't even say Barbers. It's just, you know, created, right? Like it's created in a way where it's letting the world know you're a barber. And I always tell people that when you wear that, it can be a conversation starter. And as barbers, that's what's going to lead to us being able to get more clients, is just finding ourselves in more conversations where we're talking about what we do. And I can't tell you how many times me wearing a hat like this or a shirt like you're wearing has started a conversation that I wasn't even intended on starting, where I'm just checking out in the grocery line and then the person sees my hat and says, "Hey, are you a barber?" And then next thing you know, I'm giving them my contact information. So
yeah, and I'm a testament to that too. I mean, it's happened to me because I wear a lot of barber stuff that people create. I have been asked so many times, "Oh, are you a barber?" And I'm just like, "Nah, but I work with barbers." And then I explain. And a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, I know somebody that needs your help." So again, it's still a conversation starter for someone like myself who isn't a barber, but I work with barbers. So the conversation gets started. So yeah.
And it helps you grow your business, right? Whereas if you had that Fendi shirt on, they might, most of the time people ain't even going to acknowledge it, right? Nope. I wear these $3-4 shirts that people acknowledge way before they've acknowledged any expensive thing I've worn, right? So they don't even acknowledge it. And even if they do, they might say, "Oh, that's a nice shirt." And then the conversation's done. Whereas when you, like you say, you're wearing some of this stuff, it's leading to you growing your business and getting your name out there, right? And then when you're buying this stuff, it's tax deductible, right? Because it's helping you make more money.
Exactly. You know? Yes. Yep.
And so, guys, too, just to bring it up on the screen again, because some of you guys are wondering, like, okay, well, that's cool. I didn't know, clothing and stuff was tax deductible like that. So, now I got a new way of looking at it. Make sure you guys get this. All right. It's the tax deduction toolkit. Make sure you pick this up. Let me pull up the banner so you guys can see where you can pick it up. Right here, taxdeductionstoolkit.com. All right. And if you use the coupon code BARRRBERS, spelled the right way, not with my typos, BARRRBERS, you're going to get 50% off today and tomorrow. So if you're new to all of this, you're unsure of what you can write off versus what you can't, you're trying to figure all of that out, rather than sitting here and scrolling through a million YouTube videos or sitting on Google, driving yourself crazy, or asking people that are uninformed, make this small investment and get this tax deduction toolkit so then you can give yourself some answers, a lot of answers. How many tax deductions did you put in there?
Over 400. So 400 plus.
400 plus tax deductions right then and there. And then guess what's the best part about it, guys? The tax deduction toolkit in itself is a tax deduction.
That's right. And one of my greatest, like, everybody always asks me for like my favorite tax deduction. This is the one. So please listen up closely for this one. So let's say, because people ask me, well, is getting my hair done or getting my hair cut tax deductible? Well, again, think about it from the IRS's perspective. They're saying you always have to get your hair done. So no, we're not going to allow you to do that as a tax deduction. But this is the loophole. This is the hack. So let's say I'm going to, which you said the BarberCon is happening right now?
Yep.
Okay, so BarberCon is happening right now. Let's say I'm going out of town for BarberCon. Well, what I would do is I would not get my hair cut before the show. What I would do is I would travel to the show, get my hair cut there, then research some barbers or whatever that you've been wanting to meet. Let's say there's a barber that you admire or something and you want to meet them. So you book an appointment with them for while you're there. That haircut now becomes tax deductible, but not only does the service become tax deductible, the tip does too. So I would tip really well. And guess what? That service that you just paid for plus the tip, 100% tax deductible.
And I love it. And for some of you guys hearing this and thinking to yourself, because you might maybe in the back of your head, you're thinking, well, either way, when I'm going and I'm getting this haircut, and I leave a bigger tip, like I'm spending more money than maybe I want to spend. And the argument is, I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to give the money to the IRS, right? Or do you want to spend it in a way, where you can get it back to a degree, right? You can get it partially back or you can get it fully back. You know what I mean? So it's trying to figure out and get the knowledge we need to know, okay, we're going to have to spend the money either way. We're going to either end up ending up owing it to the IRS at the end of the year, or we can spend it in ways right now where we can help build and grow our businesses, right? And then ultimately get some of that money back too. What do you think when you hear me say stuff like that?
I think it's a very simplistic way of saying it. I don't like necessarily saying get money back. What I like saying is without paying more, because you're only getting it back. Well, you can say getting it back if you're overpaying, right? So getting it back, technically, yes, if you've already paid it. But for those who haven't paid it, then you pay less. So I guess, whatever way you look at it.
Gotcha. And I guess what I'm trying to communicate to a degree, my brain be working crazy, but what I'm trying to communicate is like, if you're working with somebody, like you guys should work with somebody. And again, hit up Jen. All right, hit up Jen. Let me take this off the screen. Make sure you follow Jen, the HairCEO, and hit her up. DM her, let's work. All right, so she can help you with your business. Again, she's going to send you guys this sheet right here that you guys can fill out, so you can she can tailor to your specific situation to make sure that you're making the right moves, the best moves that you can make when it comes to your business. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you work with somebody like Jen and you guys are looking at your books and you're looking at how much you're going to owe and all of these things, when it comes, especially when it comes closer to the end of the year, I think you could even explain this better than me, but as you're getting closer to the end of the year, you kind of will know some of the money that you may end up owing to the IRS. And working with somebody like you may actually advise that instead of saving up that money to pay to the IRS, you would then instead take some of that money and maybe make some different types of investments with it, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So that way, instead of paying the IRS this money, you're maybe remodeling your shop or getting new chairs or, getting some advertising materials and stuff is what I'm trying to say. You could obviously say it better than me.
No, but you're right. That's exactly right. When you explain it that way, you're spot on. And also just using it as strategy wise, right? Like, I know a lot of times you'll see these, people that you admire in the industry, and, coming up to them trying to get free games, sometimes it can come off as really not appreciating who they are and the fact that they are in business. So why not support them? It becomes something that it's a strategy at that point. Yes, you can use it as a networking opportunity, but when you support them, you really are investing in them. And then they have I would say a greater sense of, want to help you in return. Right. I mean, because like, for example, let's say for me, I wanted to meet Jay Majors. Right. And I can hit him up in his DM and go straight to his DM and be like, yo, I love what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Can I talk to you for a second? Okay, that's route one. But then I could actually attend the CT Barber Expo, support him in what he's doing. And then while I'm there, maybe I can talk to him, and which one is he going to accept more? You know what I mean? Like, of course he's busy at the CT Barber Expo, but I'm just showing you, like, it could be a strategy too. Like, it's a business move, but also it's tax deductible for me. So you're building your network, you're building your business, and you're getting money back or not paying more money in taxes. So for me, that's the way my brain works now. Before I spend money on anything, I'm always like, how am I getting it back? Whether it's financially, whether it's a connection, whether it's a lead, like, I'm always thinking. And that's the way barbers should be too. Like, every penny you spend, how am I getting this back? What am I going to implement because of it? Even with this live right now, I mean, you didn't have to pay for this live, but what are you going to do to implement? Like, don't be a hoarder of information, because sometimes we can just get information and do nothing with it. Well, it's not going to help you if you're not going to implement anything. So, what are you going to do with this information that we're giving out? So,
and just to piggyback off of that, what she's saying is knowledge isn't necessarily power. Knowledge is potential power. It's you actually taking the information and the knowledge and doing something with it. That's what's going to make the difference in your life. And unfortunately, the part that kind of discourages me when I do these conversations live on YouTube is the fact that you guys don't pay any money to be here, right? So what ends up happening for a lot of people is they'll hear this information, they'll see these resources, it'll make a lot of sense to them, but then once they get off the live, they just continue on with their day and they just go on with their life and they don't implement any of the information and they don't take advantage of any of the resources, and then nothing in their life changes. So what I would say to you, to all you guys tapped in listening right now, is what if you paid $10,000 to listen to the same exact conversation? Like, think about it. If you paid $10,000 to be here right now, listen to this conversation, how would you look at this conversation differently? I think you would all agree with me that if you paid $10,000 to be here, you would be a lot more likely to actually take this information that you're learning and do something with it. And you'd be a lot more likely to take advantage of the resources that are being offered to you here and do something with it. So ultimately, there's two types of barbers that are tapped in right now. One of them is going to leave from this live. Nothing's going to change in their life. They're going to know a few more things, but then come next week, they'll probably forget those things because our memories are, you know how our memories are. We got a million things distracting us, so we don't remember anymore. It's like, I was on this one live with Marvin. What was that girl's name again? I forget her name. What'd she say? You're not going to remember anything, right? And nothing's going to change in your life. But then there's the other barber that's tapped in, that's been doing their best to take some notes, doing their best to remember some of this stuff. There's the other barber that's tapped in, that whenever I pull up the kit right here, the ultimate deduction toolkit, they're like, you know what? I'm getting that. I'm getting it as soon as I get off of the live. I'm getting it because it's going to help me. It's going to help you because it's going to save you so much time, so much money, and it's going to teach you a lot of different things that are going to change the way you do your business moving forward. It's going to be helpful for you. So there's a barber that's going to take advantage of this. There's also the barber that says, you know what? After I get that, you know what I'm doing? I'm DMing Jen too. DMing her. You know what I mean? Like, I got to DM her because I got questions, right? I know all of your answers, all of your questions haven't been answered, guys. So, and I know even if they have been, you want to learn more and you want to make sure you're doing all of this right. So I know there's the barber that's going to DM Jen afterwards and say, let's work, send her this form, and then see how you guys can make it make sense to make your business better. So again, those are the two type of barbers that are tapped in. Which one are you going to be? Are you going to be the barber where nothing changes? You just know a couple more things? Or are you going to be the barber that it has the imagination like, you know what? I'm going to act like I paid $10,000 to tap into that conversation. And I'm going to treat that information like the gold it is and the resources like the gold it is. And I'm going to take advantage of them. And I'm going to do my best to implement all of them. So,
yeah, it looks like Derek LeBoy, I think he definitely wants to implement. So he has a great question. You don't know, yeah. So you have a barber license, you got a nice clientele, you're not at a shop, but at your own private space. What should be the first step to file taxes? I love this question. So what I would say the first step would be to, number one, figure out what year you're trying to file taxes for, right? So we're currently, at the time of this recording, we're in 2023. So 2023 taxes have not been filed yet. And one thing to make sure you understand, there is filing taxes and then there is paying taxes. So paying taxes is year round and filing taxes is an annual thing. So a lot of times people, use them interchangeably, but I don't want you to do that. So you're saying file taxes. So this is the annual thing. So what you would do is you're only talking about prior years. So depending on how far back you need to go, what you would do is you would gather up all of your information. So let's say you would take a year at a time. So let's say you're going to focus on 2022. What you would do is you would pull together bank statements, or maybe you use a credit card processing, whatever, bank statements, figure out how much money came in. That's the first step. The second step is going to figure out all the money that went out. So what money did you spend to operate your business? your booth rent, get the tax deductions toolkit to figure out what all you've paid. And then you're going to get that information. And then you are going to either, work with a professional, which I recommend for business owners. And, that's not because I want money. Like I tell people, if you have a W-2 job, you probably don't even need to work with an accountant. You probably don't even need someone to do your taxes. But as a business owner, you absolutely need to be working with a tax professional. So I would say work with someone, give them that information, and then work with them to figure out like, okay, based on what you have here, what are your obligations? Do you owe taxes? If you do, and if it's a large amount, maybe you need to set up a payment plan, figuring out, what the next steps are. But it's as simple as that, figuring out how much money you made, how much money you spent, and working with a tax professional. That's all you need.
I love it. What would you say to the barber that may be thinking, well, I've cut hair for 3 years now. I've been making money for 3 years now, and I think I want to do stuff legit moving forward. So I think I want to start filing my taxes, paying taxes, and all of that. Would you recommend that they start from now moving forward, or would you recommend that they go back 3 years and claim that income as well?
So I'm gonna say, because this is being recorded,
I had to get you.
Okay, so what I would do is I would say
reach out to you. I would say
definitely need to reach out to me. But what I would do is, number one, what I tell all my clients, especially if you're doing some back years, what I say is, let's take a peek and see what the IRS knows. And let's just try to match what they know. And you can take the rest from there. I think everybody can read through the lines. But I want to go out and I'm checking the IRS's website and being like, all right, before I file anything, what do y'all know? Because I don't want no smoke with the IRS. Because a lot of times what will happen is we'll think that we're doing something, or we're saying, oh, I only made $20,000. But we're talking about back years, right? Because back years can really mess you up, like if you owe a ton in taxes. So that's the first step I'm doing, is I'm going to see what the IRS knows. If the IRS say, yeah, and I'm not like, if I'm not trying to buy a house and I'm not trying to do X, Y, and Z, I'm not trying to make no financial moves. If the IRS only knows about like $20,000, then that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, and this is why, guys, you wanna get a hold of the HairCEO and comment "Let's Work" so you guys can have a discussion that's specific to your situation, because everybody's situation is different. Everybody's situation is different, and there are some people who may just want to figure out what will they need to do to be able to, let's say, get a home as quick as possible, and that person, what they may be required to do when it comes to the IRS is totally different than the person who's saying, you know what, I'm not trying to buy a home or take out any big loans for a few years. So, that person's situation may be totally different. So again, this is why I want you guys, because Kevin says, you're need a professional 100%. So you guys that are trying to really learn some of the stuff, I know you guys are learning a lot today, but you definitely want to DM Jen so that she can speak to you about your particular situation.
Another thing, Marv, that's going to be super important this year, starting in 2023. And I know people have talked about it before, but starting this year, you're going to be getting those 1099Ks from your Cash App, your Venmos, your Square accounts, if you made over $600. So previously it was $20,000 and 200 transactions. Well, that has gone all the way down to 600 now. So people who were not used to getting tax forms from these credit card processors are now going to get surprises in the mail come January, because they're going to send you a nice form telling you how much money you processed. And one of the biggest mistakes I see being made, if you are not working with a tax professional, you are already probably going to pay too much in taxes, because you're going to use that number and you have to report it. But the number one mistake I see people make is that they do not include the fees that credit card processor took out, because they're sending you the gross amount. So let's say, for example, you got $20,000 in Square payments. But let's say Square only sent you $17,000. They're still going to send you a tax form that said you made $20,000. And because you don't know how much they took out in fees because you never got it, they took their fees off the break and they just sent you the remainder. Well, you don't know that you can, all that $3,000 that they took, you can write off in taxes. But because you're not tracking your money, you don't even know that. And here it is, you just gave away $3,000 that you could have taken as a tax deduction.
So to go a little bit deeper into that, what if you're now hearing this type of information and maybe you might have made that mistake last year? Is there a way that you could fix that and say, whoa, I didn't know this, and last year I reported this and I reported too much? Is there a way that you can go back and correct some of that stuff?
Absolutely. You can do an amended tax return.
Okay. So
and say basically like, hey, I missed some deductions.
Okay.
And you could take it then.
Okay, cool. So this is why I'm telling y'all better stop playing. This is why y'all want to make sure you hit up Jen. I know we covered this a little bit earlier, but for the people who are just tuning on late, what is a percentage they should put aside for taxes, like a safe percentage?
Yeah, what I like to do is I like to put 15% of your gross. Some people, and on, barbers have, a lot of barbers that I work with don't have a lot of expenses. So maybe even 20%, but I would say no less than 15% of your gross. You'll have some people say, no, you should be putting aside 20 to 25%. But what they're putting aside is they're putting aside 20 to 25% of their net income after expenses. I want you to put 15% away from the gross. So that means if you make $100 that day, or from one person, just put $15 of that to the side. Don't even count that as your money, and do it that way.
Okay. Could you explain, because the three terms that I'm familiar with are, there's gross, adjusted gross, and taxable income. Mm-hmm. Could you explain the difference of that? And can you explain it to me like I'm 5?
I love that. All right. So you have your gross income, which is all of the money that you made. So we're talking, your business income. Let's say you have a W-2 job. It could even include some unemployment income that you had. Any income that you have would be considered gross income. And then you have what's called above the line tax deductions. And these are things like your, interest payments. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but it's typically what's on like Schedule 1 of a tax return. And then you have that gives you, once you deduct that gives you your AGI, your adjusted gross income. But then there is below the line deductions. And those are things like your standard deduction, the $13,000 I was talking about for 2023, or let's say you own a home and you have Schedule A deductions, so you don't take, you itemize. After you take the itemized, then that's when you get your taxable income. So, and the taxable income is what you're taxed on. So that's the gross income, the AGI, or adjusted gross income, and then your taxable income.
So just to speak a little on that and explain to you guys some of the mistakes I made earlier on, and maybe Jen could then, piggyback off of what I say. Earlier on, when I was confused about the tax stuff, I always knew that my goal was to show I made as much money as possible and get taxed on the lowest amount that I possibly could get taxed on. So typically what that would look like, let's say, for example, just for easy numbers, say you wanted to say you made $100,000 a year. It's like, okay, my gross is 100,000. I made 100,000, right? Then there's the adjusted gross she was talking about, where you're removing some of your expenses, right? All the expenses and stuff like that. So now my gross was 100,000, and after all my expenses, let's say it was 70,000 for whatever reason, right? And then ultimately there's the below the line deduction she was saying. And then the goal is to get my taxable down. So then let's say we did all of that, and just for numbers purposes, it was 50,000, right? So now I'm getting taxed on 50,000. But in my mind, I'm showing that I'm making 100,000 for the year. So this is what I was thinking. So for me, that typically worked when I was trying to get when I was applying to rent different places, or when I want to get a car. They would go by either my gross or my adjusted gross income. So I thought those were the numbers that I needed to do my best to keep high, especially the gross. But then when I went to get my mortgage, that's where I got screwed because I kept the taxable low. So in my mind, I thought they were going to go by, just the gross. So I'm like, all right, I'm showing I'm making X amount of dollars a year. I'm good. But the taxable was way lower than it needed to be in order for me to qualify for a mortgage. So it ended up screwing me and pushing me back a couple years to where I had to get my stuff right. So that way I can get a home, So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully that will give you guys, a way to maybe start looking at some stuff, and hopefully it could give Jen some ammo to maybe piggyback off of and share some thoughts about even that experience with me.
Yeah, no, a lot of people fall into that same exact category. And you have to remember who's looking at what, right? So when you talk about things like renting, for example, you have to look at who's looking at the information, who's looking at the numbers. Yes, they may look at your gross, and they may look at your adjusted gross income, because for a renter, it's depending on where you live, it's pretty easy for them to kick you out, right? Like it's not much. Yeah, there are some fees that go along with that, but it's not a huge risk as someone who's purchasing a home. So maybe they will take a chance on someone who has a lower taxable income, because it's not as much of a risk for them. However, when you start playing with the big boys and you start, talking about a loan for some money to buy an asset, the risk is much higher. So they're going to be looking at that taxable income, because they're saying, okay, this is the income that they're saying that they take home after all of the taxes are done. I'm sorry, after all of the deductions are taken. So we need to know that they can pay for this asset. So now they're thinking, okay, this is a higher risk, because we just can't kick someone out of their home. Like, they have to go through foreclosure. This is an asset. Banks don't really like holding a lot of assets, because they're not in the, home buying business. They're in the lending money business. So now they have to factor all these things in, and they're looking at another number. So they want to know what that taxable number is. So again, it's important to understand who's looking at what number and figuring out what's important to them. And when it comes to real estate, that taxable number is going to be important to them, because they want to know that you can pay for this asset, because they don't want it back.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you for that. And again, guys, I know listening to this, for some of you, this may sound very foreign, or even at times may feel a little overwhelming. It's all good. All right, it's all good. We're all still learning. I would even say that Jen is still learning too, because the cool thing about all of this world, just like the barbering world, you can always learn more and more and more, and there's just levels and levels to this, right? Always. So no matter what level you're at, maybe you feel a little overwhelmed, or maybe you're excited too. Maybe you're just like, I like this because I'm learning a lot. Either way, again, this is why I'm going to highly recommend that you reach out to Jen when we wrap up this live, which I think we're getting towards the end of it. So stick around for a little bit longer. But when we do get off, DM Jen and comment and say, let's work. So that way you guys can link and do some business together, and you can start getting your stuff straight, and she can make it a lot easier for you. A lot of times we want to try to do everything ourselves, not realizing that there are people out there that are professionals at what they do. It's just like our clients. Yeah, they could very easily just cut their own hair, but you know what? They're like, I'm just going to go to the professional, and they come to you, and you do an amazing job with their hair, way better than they could have did on their own, right? Way faster. And it's the same thing with, when you reach out to professionals like Jen, she can make everything just so much easier for you guys, make it make sense to you. And you could be making your business move in the right direction moving forward. Don't be the person that just listens to this, learns a thing or two, and then just continues on doing what you've been doing. Now, we want to take your business to the next level. And I would even say I'm learning a lot as well, guys. Like, I've learned a lot today, and I learn a lot every day too. And I'm excited too, because I'm getting the ultimate deduction toolkit too. I'm getting it. I need to get that. So y'all got to make sure you pick this up too, because I'm excited to see what's on this list that I'm not aware of, so I can start deducting some of that, you know. So I'm going to be getting this as well, and I'm excited to work more with Jen as well, because she knows what she's talking about, and even aside from that, I can feel just through all of my interactions that I've ever had with her that she has a genuine passion for what she does, a genuine care for what she does, and she cares about the people, and that's what you want. You know, she's obviously got to make money because she's in business. We all do, right? But aside from that, there's so many things that she does every day that she doesn't necessarily have to do, because she just enjoys this and has a passion for it and wants to help people and empower people. So not only should you guys pick up the tax deduction toolkit so you can know some of the stuff that you guys can deduct that maybe you're not thinking of or not aware of, you should also make sure that you follow her on all the social media platforms, especially Instagram and YouTube, because she's got a bunch of videos on here that are going to be super helpful for you guys. So do that. Barbers. Mark said I could do this all day.
Mark, you speaking my language. I love this stuff, man. I can talk about this all day. You know, another reason, like, somebody asked me, like, well, why would you, out of all people to work with, why would you want to work with barbers? Oh my gosh, they are the worst. I hear
they're annoying, Jen. Barbers are annoying. And I can admit I'm annoying. You know what I'm saying? But barbers, oh my God, after dealing with y'all for years, barbers are annoying. So I know why they ask you that.
They ask you that all the time. Like, really? You could choose any self-employed industry and you choose the hair industry? Oh my gosh. They pray for me all the time.
They should. Because barbers, it's one of those things where, you know, we have so many things about us that are both our greatest asset and gift and a curse as well, you know. And there are just times where we're stubborn, which can be a skill, right? When you're not trying to hear anything, you're focused, you're doing what you got to do. It could be a skill, but it could also be you know, a curse, because when you get to a spot where you're not trying to hear nobody else, you think you know it all, you got all the answers. It's like, oh, I actually had somebody comment on the post earlier. I don't know if you've seen it. Young Kitty commented, and he was talking about filing, basically saying, like, you know, if you're making less than 20K, there's no reason to report that type of thing. And I was just like, bro, listen, I used to think like you too. You know, I used to think like you. You know, that's why I think you should listen to this conversation. And he's just like, you know, I hear what you're saying, but there's no reason to do it. And I'm just like, you know, I've been hard-headed like that too. So
can't help everybody. Can't help everybody.
You know, and so barbers, we can be tough, but I think I could argue that it's probably very similar in a lot of industries too. You know,
I'm sure you're going to have them in every single industry. But my thing is, I think the reason why I enjoy working with, you know, barbers so much is because I know so many people, especially in the finance space and the business space, they, you know, discount barbers, you know, and say, oh, I don't want to, you know, I don't only want to work with professional people, and, you know, barbers aren't professional and they're hustlers and blah, blah, blah. So I think that barbers get a bad rep, you know, and they just, a lot of bad assumptions are made. And I'm just like, nah, you know, not all barbers are like that. So I want to make sure that they have really good representation too, because if you're working with someone who feels that way, even if they're thinking it and they're not saying it, because of course, you know, a lot of people still want your money, even though they don't respect you. But I think there are a lot of professionals in the financial space that don't respect barbers or won't take the time to explain things at the level that they need to explain. So it's just frustrating to deal with them. I know I get a lot of people that come to me who have been working with CPAs, who say, oh my gosh, like, I was working with this CPA and, you know, they wouldn't answer my phone calls, that I felt like they felt like I asked too many questions, or, you know, they just were never available. And so they come work for me. They come work with me, and it's great over here. So yeah.
Rosie said, I'm ready to have a healthy, happy
Guys.
relationship with money. And I could go on a whole rant. That's a whole nother conversation about making sure you're having a healthy, happy relationship with money. And maybe I'll do in the future. But that is something you guys want to work towards, because so many of us just look at money wrong, and we have very, very unhealthy relationships with money. And then we wonder why we don't have none, or we don't know what to do with it, because we just don't understand it. And it's okay, because most of us, we probably, especially barbers, we don't come from anything. You know what I mean? A lot of times we don't come from, we might have a good family. We might not have a good family, or, we're in situations where we just were never given anything. So we've had to earn everything, and we just weren't taught certain things. So because of us being ignorant and not knowing certain things, we develop these unhealthy relationships in a lot of ways. And one of the unhealthy relationships we develop is with money. We have very unhealthy relationship with money. And by just understanding what it really is and how to use it and all of these things, we can make our lives better in a lot of different ways. So Steph said, can I deduct the value of this convo? I love it.
I wish.
Right. So Jen, unfortunately, I thought I brought my computer charger up here. I didn't. So I just got hit with the low battery notification. But I think we gave him a lot of game. What y'all think? Let us know in the chat. Drop some gems. If you guys got a lot of game. If you haven't done so already, guys, make sure you take a screenshot of this, share it to your story, tag me in it, tag the HairCEO in it, and share it to your Instagram story, so that way we can show you some love on Instagram. Also, just one last time, I want to make sure I mention to do a couple things. One, subscribe to Jen's channel on YouTube, especially if you enjoyed this conversation. There's a whole lot of more game on there, so make sure you do that. And then also make sure you pick up the tax deduction toolkit as well. And just a quick reminder, what she's doing for today and tomorrow, when you pick it up, use the coupon code BARRRBERS, which is 1R, to get 50% off, so you can know what you can deduct, what you can't deduct, and you can have more information and more knowledge when it comes to making sure you're writing off different things that you can write off when it comes to your business, and make sure that you're doing your taxes right. And then lastly, make sure you DM her. All right, guys, DM her on IG, and you want to say, let's work. Okay. And what she's going to do is she's going to send you this page right here for you to fill out, ask you a couple questions about what you're doing with your business. And then you guys are going to be able to work together, and you're going to be able to, I love what people always say, take your business to the next level, right? That's the line. You're definitely going to be able to do it. You're going to have a lot more information and knowledge. So make sure you DM her on Instagram and say, let's work. I see a lot of people saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I also want to say thank you, Jen. I appreciate you for taking 2 hours of your time that you didn't have to. You didn't have to do this, right? And you did it. I appreciate you for giving so much game. And I know you probably wish you can give even more, because I'm sure there's things you're like, man, I wish I talked about this or that. This is why, guys, hit up Jen, follow her, and reach out to her, so you guys can start your relationship together.
All right, guys. Thank you. And I love your community. They are on it. So I appreciate you just inviting me out.
Yeah, we got, let her know in the chat. Hit her with the barbers, guys. We're not playing. Jen, this is where, I'm grateful for that I have a community of people that want more. A lot of the barbers that don't want more, they don't really like me. They take shots at me. They call me names.
What?
But it's cool, because what they don't realize is we just operate on different frequencies, and I'm not the person for you. It's like, there's plenty of people on Instagram for you. I'm not for you. But luckily for me, I have a community of people that they want more. They love this type of information, and they're action takers. So expect a lot of these people to DM you hopefully they buy the tax deduction toolkit, which I know a lot of them will. And you guys are going to be working together.
Love it. Love it. Thanks, guys. Barbers coming through.
Let's go. Jen, thanks again. I
You're
will
welcome.
be in touch. I got to make sure I pick up my ultimate, the tax deduction toolkit. I make sure I pick that up, and we'll talk more.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Jen. I'm going to end this. It's going to end live, but it's going to keep you in the room, and I just want to talk to you for a minute before we completely end. All right. Appreciate y'all. Barbers. What's happened?